Hi, this video will be a demonstration of a way to braid the 7-loop so-called Spanish braid from the 17th century that I learned from this book by Noemi Spicer and Joy Boutroup. Joy Boutroup did most of the research on this on the basis of Noemi Spicer's earlier research, and Joy Boutroup was the one that decoded, that finally figured out, broke the secret of all the known 17th century alphabet braids, inscription braids, loop braids that were done to form letters of the alphabet. European Loop Braiding Investigations and Results by Noemi Spicer and Joy Boutroup. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing their names. I'm very sorry. Boutroup, Spicer probably, and I apologize for my ignorance. And this is Part 2, Instructions for Letter Braids in 17th Century Manuscripts. Part 1 is, they're available separately, and Part 1 is on a completely different subject, having to do with the various ways of exchanging loops when two or more braiders are cooperating in a braid, and some amazing historical information about that. But the way I do this braid is slightly different than the way Joy Boutroup does it in the first loop transfer and the way I set up the loops, but it produces the same braid, and it doesn't interfere with her. It's a very slight difference. She sets up the braid with the loops like so, A, B, and C having a loop on the left hand, and I set it up like this with the no loop on the C finger and the D finger having a loop. She moves the C finger, her C finger loop down to the D finger shortly after the her version starts. It's unknown exactly how they did it in the 17th century. I just prefer to do it this way. That's what I'll be demonstrating. Let me move the books out of the way. Excuse me. I am not going to be showing how to braid the alphabet braid. This is the base braid, the braid that will be the movements that one braider would be doing. It makes its own braid, a 7-loop braid, and with 4 loop transfers per cycle, twice as many as a square braid. And it's a great braid. It has many different variations you can do with this braid. I've talked about some of them on my blog. And 2 people working together, each doing these moves, could cooperate and make a letter braid, a 14-loop letter braid. I will not be showing that. I'll be demonstrating it with bicolor loops. All the loops at the upper shank is one color and the lower shank is another. That's best if they contrast dark and light to make the pattern show well. It's not necessary. You can braid this braid with single color loops too. It's a good way to learn the braid, because you'll be able to see whether with bicolor loops you get a lot of possible patterns for one thing in the braid, but you'll also be able to see very easily whether you have forgotten to turn the loop or not when you're supposed to be turning it. Vice versa. It's helpful to use bicolor loops. They're knotted together at the bottom. All knotted. I've just done a simple start with they're all knotted together at the top. I'll start by showing the divided version of this braid. Now let me show. I've already begun braiding. The way I'll be starting to teach it will produce a divided braid, a top layer here yellow, and a bottom layer separated here purple. And this is the way the letter braids are braided. They're braided divided, and the 2 layers only join when the letters are formed. The rest of the time it's a divided braid like this. For this sampler braid, this will be useful for making a little loop at the top of the braid. The divided part will naturally form an open area, a loop that I can stick a keychain into or whatever I wish. Use it as some kind of fastening or not. And after a few cycles of that, I will demonstrate the braid with transfers turned, making a unified braid, which will then integrate the colors as well. Okay, the braid has 4 transfers per cycle. They're done a bit differently than you might expect. The operator finger will first be the index finger of the other hand, and secondly, for the second and fourth transfers will be the B finger of the hand whose loops are being manipulated. We'll get to that. Okay, I will not be turning any of these transfers, so that's something to be careful to also not do. The first move, the first transfer, is through the B loop, taking the A loop without a turn, bringing it through, and placing it onto the C finger, which had no loop. That's the first loop transfer. The second move is a loop shift. The A finger moves into the B loop and shifts up, freeing the B finger. Second loop transfer. The B finger is now the operator finger. It will go through these 2 loops, C and D, and it will transfer the opposite hand's D loop, reaching into it, taking it without a turn, bringing it through the C and D loop of its own hand. The loop shift is on the other hand. The right D finger moves into the C loop and shifts it down 1 position. Tighten. Half the cycle is done. Now, on the other hand, the loops are now in the exact mirror image configuration that they were when you started. A, B, on the right hand now, A and B have a loop, C has no loop, D has a loop. Okay, the second half of the cycle, on the other hand, through B, take A with no turn, place it on C. B loop shifts up to A, 1 transfer done. Second transfer, B finger goes through C and D, takes opposite hand's D loop with no turn. Opposite hand, C loop shifts down to D. Tighten. 1 cycle is done. Next cycle, through B, take A, place it on C, shift B up. Second transfer, through C and D, take opposite D, no turn, we're not turning. Opposite C shifts down to D. Tighten. Third transfer, through B, take A, place it on C, B shifts up. Fourth transfer, B finger through C and D, takes opposite D, opposite C shifts down 1, tighten. Next cycle, you should also make sure that your my yellow shanks are all still uppermost on all the fingers. That way you can be fairly confident that that your 2 layers are still separate. You're still forming a divided braid. None of the transfers have been turned. Through B, take A, shift. Sorry. I often do those simultaneously. Let's redo that. Okay, the way I've been showing it, I sometimes combine those two moves, which is confusing, so let's do them separately. Through B, take A, place it on C, shift up, through, take opposite D, shift, tighten. Through B, take A, place on C. Sorry, let me get that out of the way. Shift through C and D, take opposite D, shift, tighten. Through B, take A, place on C, shift, through C and D, take opposite D, shift, tighten. Through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take opposite D, shift, tighten. Beginning a new cycle. Through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take D, shift, and tighten. Half a cycle done. Through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take opposite D, shift, tighten. Another cycle done. Next cycle. Through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take D, shift, and tighten. Through B, take A, place, and shift through C and D, take opposite D, and shift, tighten. Okay, my loop looks plenty long enough. I'm just going to park these loops and show you here. Here are the two layers of the braid. This done divided, this has a strong, each half will have a strongly cupped shape at first, and you will later be able to stretch it out and flatten it. It's just the way it braids. It's final. It doesn't have to stay that way on both sides. I would usually do it after the braid is done, but just to show you, it's a nice wide flat braid, very pretty. Let's put it back and continue with, here I'll be turning the transfers to make a cohesive braid. This must have slipped. I'm going to put it back. fingers back, left, right hand back into its loops. Okay, so now I will do each transfer with a turn. This is just one possible way to do the braid. You can have this braid can be made wide and flat. When you would only turn one outer transfer. It can be made with many different structural varieties. I'm going to do it with each transfer, all the transfers turned, and you will then be able to when you turn each transfer, you should be able to see the shanks switch places, so that if yellow had been up after the turn to transfer is done, on the other hand, purple will be up. It should take, let's see, with a 7-loop braid, it should take 7 cycles for all the loops to come back to the same configuration. We can check that. I'll probably lose count doing it so slow. I usually try to keep track of the cycles, is what I try and count when I'm braiding myself. But for the camera and going very slowly and talking about each move individually, I usually can't quite do that. Okay, so now I'll be taking each transfer with a turn. I will turn from below this time. It's fine to turn from above instead. From below results in a braid with this surface, the one facing us, will be the slightly wider one, so maybe it'll look clearer in the camera, I don't know, but I braid either way. But within one braid, you keep doing it the same way. So I will be turning my loops from below, which on the left hand, which with the first transfer will result in a counterclockwise turn. And so I want to keep doing it that way within the braid, not to switch and suddenly do, there'll be a discontinuity if I switch the direction of my loop transfers. Okay, so now same sequence, but now turning each loop as I transfer it. Nalini Spicer and Joy Buttrick will refer to this as a crossed transfer. I'm sorry, I just can't get used to that. I should perhaps, but I prefer to say turned. That's what they said in the 17th century, actually. That's what probably not the way I say it, but anyway, in the 15th century, this type of transfer was called reversed, meaning that the shanks reverse themselves. The two shanks cross each other after the turn to transfer. Okay, enough talk. So next cycle, this will join up the top and bottom layers here. These continuing cycles. So first transfer through B, take A with a turn from below, place on C. The purple shank is now uppermost. Shift. Second transfer through C and D, take opposite D from below with a turn, crossed, shift, and tighten. Looking at your left hand's loops now, the B and C finger loops, the B and C loops, should have the new shank color uppermost. Second half of the cycle, through B, take A with a turn, place on C, shift, through C and D, take opposite D, turn, shift, tighten. One cycle done. At this point, the crosses in the loops are fairly low. They haven't been beaten up to the fell of the braid yet. That won't happen until another cycle or two. But it's starting to join up. Both hands have 2 loops now that have the opposite shank color uppermost. Okay, next, second cycle through B. I did it the wrong way, excuse me. Through B, take A from below with a turn, place on C and shift, through C and D, take opposite D from below, shift, and tighten. Continuing with the cycle through B, take A with a turn, place on C, shift through C and D. I should mention, actually, at this point, all the loops have turned over, and with the next transfer, they will begin turning back again to yellow. Okay, through C and D, take opposite D from below with a turn, shift, tighten. Okay, that's 2 full cycles, and now on the actual braid, let's take it off, you can see the purple beginning to come to the top. Right down there, and the loop is joining up. I can't quite remember now what I said in the beginning part before this jump, but now I will be taking every transfer with a turn. Gee, I really can't remember if I already said this. I will be turning from below. It's fine to turn either way, from above the loop or from below the loop, but it's best to, well, you should stick with one way within a braid. I do either. I think anyway, for this braid I've been turning from below, so that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. The first transfer, they again are the same as the sequence is the same as it was before. The only difference will be that the loops will now be taken with a turn, which will give them a half twist, bringing up the opposite color. In this pattern, turning every transfer will result in a braid with a 7-cycle pattern repeat. So after 7 cycles, the loop should be back in this configuration with all the yellow shanks up on each finger. Okay, let's start. So first transfer through B, take A, place on C, shift through C and D, take opposite D with a turn, shift, and tighten. You'll see that these 2 loops, B and C, now have the purple shank facing up. Second half of cycle, through B, take A with a turn, place on C, shift, through C and D, take opposite D with a turn, shift, and tighten. Now we have a yellow shank still up here, and a yellow shank still up here and here. In the second cycle, all the purple shanks will turn up, and in fact, at the end of the cycle, a yellow one will start to turn up again too. Okay, through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take opposite D, shift, and tighten. Through B, take A with a turn, place, shift, through C and D, take opposite D with a turn, shift, and tighten. Through B, take A with a turn, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, and tighten. Through B, take A, place, shift, through C and D, take deep loops there, and shift, tighten, through B, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, and tighten, through B, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, and tighten, through B, take with a turn, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, tighten, through B, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, tighten, through, take with a turn, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, tighten, through B, turn, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, tighten, through B, take with a turn, place, and shift. Sorry, I do those a bit simultaneously. Through C and D, take with a turn, shift, and tighten. Through B, take with a turn, place, shift, through C and D, take with a turn, shift, and tighten. Okay, that brings us back to all the yellow shanks being uppermost. I wasn't counting cycles, which I normally do. I prefer it. My general mantra is to say the turned or not turned. I must say that usually to remind myself, at least in the beginning of any particular braid, and to count the cycles because that's very helpful. For instance, if I had gotten through cycle 7 and one of the loops was not yellow shank up, I would know I had made a mistake. I mean, it's a good checkpoint. Here I'm assuming I got to cycle 7 because all the yellow shanks are uppermost. Let's take a look at the braid. Well, you can kind of see the pattern. Another thing that's that you can do, here's the pattern, sort of lopsided M's. The top face usually looks a little bit different than the reverse face because of the direction of the turns. One face will be slightly wider than the other.